There was a man in a village, not far, not long ago, not in a story you've heard before. He had a well. Every morning he would walk to the well, lower the bucket, and drink. The water was clean, cold, good, and every morning he would feel satisfied. He would go back home, he would work, he would rest. But one day someone told him about another well, deeper, more interesting, on the other side of the valley. They said the water tasted different. They said people who drank from it felt something he had never felt before. He did not need to go. He knew his well was good. But that night, he could not sleep. Not because of pain, not because of hunger, but because of that well he had never seen, because of a water he had never tasted, because of a feeling he could not name. And by morning, he had already decided. Not with his mind, not with a plan. His feet just started walking. He found the well. The water was not better, but now he could not go back to his old well the same way. Something had shifted, something small, something quiet, but something permanent. He kept walking to the new well every day, even though the water was the same, even though he knew somewhere deep inside that he had left something clean for something that only felt new. And years later, when someone asked him why he kept going back, he could not explain it. He just said, "I don't know. I just go." That is where we begin tonight. Not with advice, not with a list, not with steps. We begin with a truth that most people feel but never say out loud. You know something is hurting you. You are not confused about what it is. You are not waiting for more evidence. You have seen the damage. You have felt the emptiness that comes after. You have made the promise. You have broken the promise. You have made it again. And somewhere in the cycle, you stopped being surprised by yourself. And that moment when you stopped being surprised, that is the most dangerous place a human being can be, because it means you have accepted something that should never have been accepted. It means a version of you has won, and you did not even vote for it. Let us slow down here, because this is not about addiction, though it can include that. This is not about sin, though it touches it. This is not about weakness, though it feels like that. This is about something older than any of those words, something that Al-Ghazali spent his entire life studying, or something that the Quran returns to again and again in different forms, and something that every honest human being, if they are quiet enough, can feel moving inside them right now. There is a system inside you. It was not designed by you. It was not chosen by you, but it runs every day, every decision, every loop, every late night, every moment you chose something you did not want to choose. It runs. And the first thing you need to understand, really understand, not just nod at, is that you are not fighting your habits. You are not fighting your environment. You are not even fighting your desires. You are fighting a version of yourself that has already decided what it wants. And that version is very, very good at surviving. So let us start from the beginning, not the beginning of the habit, not the beginning of the problem, the beginning of the human being. When the ruh entered the body, when that divine breath was placed into the clay, something extraordinary happened. Not just life, not just consciousness, something more specific than that. A tension was born, a pull in two directions, not evil against good, not darkness against light, something more complex and more honest than that simple image. There was the pull toward the highest, the pull toward stillness, clarity, remembrance, the pull toward something that does not decay. the pull toward the Ruh's original home, toward what it knew before it was placed here. And there was the pull toward the immediate, the warm, the close, the visible, the pull of hunger, comfort, safety, pleasure, recognition, the pull of the Nafs, the self, toward what it can touch right now. And in the middle of these two pulls, there is the Qalb, the heart, not the organ in your chest, the real one, the seat of your will, the thing that chooses, the thing that turns, the thing that either rises toward the Ruh or collapses into the Nafs. Three parts, always present, always moving. And here is what no one tells you. The system does not break, it shifts. When something starts hurting you, when you begin doing the thing you know you should not do, the Ruh does not disappear, the Qalb does not die, the Nafs does not suddenly win everything. What happens is quieter than that. The Qalb simply starts spending more of its time facing the wrong direction. And that shift is so gradual, so quiet, so reasonable at every step, that by the time you notice it, you cannot remember when it began. Think about the first time you did the thing you now cannot stop doing. Go back to that moment, even if it is uncomfortable. Do not judge it yet, just observe it. What was happening in your life before that first time? There was almost certainly something missing. Not necessarily something dramatic, not necessarily pain. Sometimes it was just dullness, flatness, a life that was technically fine but spiritually quiet, a life where the days were moving but the heart was not, a routine that fed the body and starved the soul. And the Nafs, the self that is always searching, always restless, always reaching for stimulation, for aliveness, noticed that emptiness. And it said, without words, "Here, try this. This will make you feel something." And you did. And you felt something. That is the part no one wants to say out loud. But it has to be said. It worked. The first time, it worked. It gave you something. Relief, maybe. Excitement, maybe. The feeling of being alive, maybe. The feeling of escaping, even for a moment. The flatness. The Nafs is not stupid. It does not offer you things that do not work. It offers you things that work in the short term. Things that solve the immediate problem. Things that feel true right now, even when they are false in the long run. And that is what makes this so complicated. Because you did not start doing a bad thing because you are a bad person. You started doing it because it solved something, even if it created something worse. And now, years or months later, you are here, still doing it, knowing it is wrong, knowing the cost, knowing the emptiness that follows. And the question is not, why did I start? Or the question is, why can I not stop? And the answer to that question lives in a place most people never look. They look at behavior. Change the behavior, they say. Build new habits. Replace the old one. They look at environment. Remove the trigger, they say. Change what is around you. They look at willpower. Try harder, they say. Make a stronger promise, a better plan. And none of it works permanently, because none of it addresses what is actually happening. What is actually happening is this. A part of you, a real part, not a metaphor, has learned that the thing you are doing is safety. Not pleasure, not fun, not even desire anymore. Safety. And when something becomes associated with safety in the human nervous system, in the Qalb, in the deepest layer of the self, you do not fight it with willpower. You cannot logic your way out of it, because it is not operating in the part of you that processes logic. It is operating in the part of you that keeps you alive. Let that sit for a moment. Because if it is true, and it is, then everything you have tried to stop this thing has been aimed at the wrong target. You have been trying to fight a survival response with a decision, and survival always outlasts decisions. Now let us go deeper, because there is a layer beneath safety that almost no one reaches, and it is in this layer that the real explanation lives. And it is in this layer that, if you are willing to stay, the real shift begins to happen. Underneath the safety association, there is an identity. At some point, the thing you're doing became part of how you understand yourself, not consciously, not with intention, but quietly in the background while your conscious mind was busy with other things. The Nafs, always efficient, always building its own architecture, attached the habit to your sense of self. This is who you are now, not in the words you say, not in the image you project, but in the deepest layer of your felt sense of yourself. When you imagine stopping, really stopping permanently, completely, there is a feeling. Before the logic, before the plan, before the motivation speech you give yourself, there is a feeling, and that feeling is something close to loss, something close to grief, something that says, if I give this up, something about me disappears. And the Nafs says, are you sure you want to do that? And the Qalb hesitates, and the hesitation is the opening, and the Nafs walks right through it. This is the mechanism. This is how it works. Not through overwhelming force, not through addiction chemistry alone, though that is real, through identity, through the quiet suggestion that the thing you want to leave is actually part of you. And the reason Islamic psychology, real Islamic psychology, not the surface version, is the only framework that addresses this fully, is because it is the only framework that gives you a true answer to the identity question. Who are you, really? Not your Nafs. The Nafs is real, but it is not you. It is with you. It is part of your experience in this world. But it is not the deepest layer of you. The Nafs is the voice of the animal self, the voice of survival, the voice of now. It has a role. It is not evil by default. It is a tool. But when it becomes the identity, when you start saying, I am someone who does this, then the tool has taken over the workshop, not your Qalb alone. The Qalb is the closest thing to the real you, the seat of the will, the mirror of the spirit. But the Qalb is soft. It takes the shape of what surrounds it. It turns toward what it faces. And if it has been facing the Nafs for a long time, it starts to believe the Nafs's version of you. The truest layer of you is the Ruh, the breath of the divine, the thing that was present before the body, before the name, before the habit, before the wound that the habit was built around. The Ruh does not participate in the loop. It does not argue. It does not beg. It does not threaten. It waits. Quietly, with a patience that is older than time. And here is what the Ruh knows that you have forgotten. This is not who you are, not this version, not this loop, not this destruction you return to in the dark. That is the Nafs performing for an empty audience. That is the Qalb turned in the wrong direction. That is not you. That is the distance from you. And the distance feels so familiar that you have started calling it home. This is the first real wound, when the distance from your Ruh starts feeling like home. When the emptiness after the act, the hollow, clean emptiness that you know so well, starts feeling normal, not painful, not alarming, just normal. Like this is how it is, like this is who you are. That is not peace, that is numbing, and numbing is not the absence of pain. Numbing is what happens when the pain has been present so long that the nervous system, the Qalb, learned to stop registering it as pain and started registering it as background. You are not okay. You are adapted. Those are very different things. Let us talk about the moment just before, not the act itself. The moment before, because that moment is where everything is decided, and that moment has a specific texture, a specific feeling that you will recognize immediately because you have lived inside it thousands of times. It starts not with desire. Desire comes later. It starts with a shift in energy, a lowering, a kind of subtle flatness or agitation or restlessness, not extreme, not dramatic, just a quiet signal from somewhere deep that says something needs to change right now. The body needs something. The heart needs something. Something is off. And in that moment, that tiny window, you have the full capacity of your will. The Qalb is at its most open. The decision has not been made yet. You are genuinely free in that moment. The path to the Ruh is right there. The path back to yourself, the real self, not the adapted one, is right there. And then the Nafs offers the solution. And it does not offer it like a temptation. It does not say, choose wrong. It offers it like a relief, like a logical response to what you are feeling, like the most obvious answer to the question your body is asking. And the Qalb, already weakened by repetition, already familiar with this path, already carrying the identity of someone who does this thing, the Qalb moves, not because it wants to destroy itself, because it wants relief right now, in this moment, from this specific discomfort. And the window closes, and you are in the act, and the Ruh waits. This is what the Quran is describing, not academically, but with real intimacy, when it speaks of the Nafs Ammara, the self that commands, not the Nafs of evil people, the Nafs of human beings, the self that commands toward what it wants, the self that finds the moment of vulnerability and moves, not with cruelty, with efficiency. It is very efficient. And what you have been fighting all this time is not a monster. It is a very efficient system that learned a long time ago what you need in your lowest moments. And it delivers, and you let it. Because in the moment, it works. But let us talk about after. Because after is where the real cost is paid. Not in consequences, though those exist. Not in guilt, though that is real. In something subtler and more destructive than either of those things. After, there is a particular kind of silence, not the silence of rest, not the silence of peace, the silence of a room after something broke, the silence of an argument that ended but was not resolved, the silence that has a texture, slightly cold, slightly heavy, slightly colorless. You know this silence. You may have learned to live inside it so completely that you no longer feel it as silence. You feel it as just how you are, how your days feel, a flatness, a slight distance from everything, a mild but persistent sense that the best version of your life is happening somewhere you are not. That is not your personality. That is not how you were made. That silence is the distance between where you are and where the Ruh is waiting. And every time you repeat the act, every time you do the thing you know will break something, that distance grows slightly, not dramatically, not catastrophically, slightly, one more inch between you and your real self. And the Qalb which is supposed to be the meeting place, the space where Ruh and Nafs negotiate, the center of your will, the Qalb becomes divided, not broken, divided. Part of it has been given to the Nafs. Part of it is still reaching for something higher. And a divided Qalb is perhaps the most painful human experience available, because it means you never fully belong to either direction. You are not at peace in the habit, and you are not at peace away from it. You are just in between, always in between. And in between is where most people spend their entire lives, not because they chose it, not because they are weak or failed or abandoned, but because no one ever showed them the real map. No one ever said, what you are feeling is not a character flaw. It is a structural problem. It is a problem of the inner architecture, and the architecture can be changed. But not the way you have been trying. Let us talk about why willpower does not work. And I do not mean willpower in the pop psychology sense. The idea of discipline, pushing through, just deciding harder. I mean the real experience of genuine intention meeting genuine failure. Because you have been genuinely sincere about stopping. I know you have, not once, not twice, many times. And in those moments of genuine sincerity, something real was happening. The Qalb was turning. The will was engaging. The intention was true, and then it failed anyway. And the failure was not because the intention was fake. The failure was because intention alone cannot overpower identity. This is what the scholars understood and what modern self-help misses completely. The Nafs does not respond to intentions. The Nafs responds to what it recognizes as reality. And the reality that the Nafs has constructed over months or years of repetition is that you are someone who does this. That this thing is part of the structure, that the system includes this element. And when you make an intention to stop, the Nafs does not argue with you. It does not present counter-arguments. It simply waits. It waits until the moment when the discomfort returns, the flatness returns, the restlessness returns, and then it says, very quietly, without drama, see? This is what we do with this feeling. You know this, you have always done this, and the body recognizes it. And the Qalb, which has been trained through thousands of repetitions to respond to this specific signal in this specific way, responds. And the intention, which existed only in the conscious layer, watches from a distance as everything below it moves without asking for permission. That is not weakness. That is physics. You cannot overpower a trained response with a new intention without rebuilding the architecture that produces the trained response, and rebuilding the architecture takes something much more demanding than a decision. It takes presence, daily presence, in the moment just before, not in the motivation speech the morning after, not in the planning session on a good day, in the moment. The specific texture, the specific lowering, the specific restlessness in that exact window. You have to be present there, aware, not fighting, not panicking, not rehearsing a script, just present, watching it happen, naming it clearly. This is the Nafs. This is the command. This is the moment where I have always given in. This is the window. And in the naming, in the clear, calm, present naming, the Qalb has a chance to turn, not to eliminate the feeling, not to destroy the desire, but to pause long enough to remember what is on the other side. The Ruh does not compete in the moment. It does not shout louder than the Nafs. It does not send urgent signals. But when you create silence in that window, when you pause the automatic machinery with conscious presence, you can feel it. Not dramatically, not like a revelation, like a direction, like something pulling softly in a way you usually do not let yourself notice because the nafs is already moving. And every time you notice it, even for a moment, even if you still make the wrong choice, something shifts in the architecture, not dramatically, not permanently after once, slightly, 1 degree of turn in the Qalb toward the Ruh. And this is the long game. This is what the Islamic tradition is pointing at when it speaks of muhasabah, the accounting of the self. Not the punishment of the self, not the examination of failure with a verdict at the end, but the honest, patient, daily watching of the inner movements, the naming, the noticing, the slow accumulated turning. It is not exciting. There is no breakthrough moment. There is only the daily presence in the window, the daily noticing, the daily choice, sometimes made rightly, sometimes made wrongly, but always made with awareness instead of in the dark. And awareness, over time, changes the architecture. This is the only thing that changes the architecture. Now let us talk about guilt. Because guilt is not your friend in this process. And the tradition is very clear about this, even if the religious culture sometimes uses guilt as a tool. When you do the thing, when you fall back into the loop after a period of clarity, something happens in most people that they call guilt, but is actually something more complicated and more destructive. It is not the clean guilt that says, I acted against my values, I need to return to them. That guilt is healthy. That guilt moves you. That guilt is the Qalb recognizing misalignment. What most people actually experience is something more like shame. And shame says something very different. Shame does not say, my action was wrong. Shame says, I am wrong. There is something fundamentally broken about me. Look, I did it again. I promised, and I failed, and I always fail, and this is just who I am. And the Nafs, always efficient, always architecting, takes that shame and does something brilliant and terrible with it. It uses it as the next trigger, because shame creates exactly the internal state, the flatness, the disconnection, the unbearable self-directed pain that the habit was originally built to solve. Do you see the circle? You do the thing. You feel shame. The shame creates the state that needs to be escaped. The nafs offers the escape. You do the thing again. The guilt becomes the fuel, and the loop feeds itself. This is why the tradition warns so strongly against despair, not because failure does not matter, but because despair about failure is more destructive than the failure itself. Because despair closes the Qalb. It pulls the heart down and inward and makes the distance from the Ruh feel permanent, makes the architecture feel fixed, makes the identity feel locked. And a locked identity is the nafs's greatest victory, not the habit, the belief that the habit is who you are. So what is the alternative to shame? The tradition offers something that sounds simple and is actually very radical. Return. Not after you have fixed yourself, not after you have earned the return through suffering or discipline or a sufficient period of punishment. Right now, in the same breath that recognizes the failure. Return. In Arabic, the word is Tawbah, but do not hear it in the religious cultural sense, the formal, heavy procedural sense it has sometimes been given. Hear it in its literal sense, to turn back toward. Not a grand gesture, a small, immediate internal turn of the Qalb. You fell. You are still on the ground. Turn, not when you stand up, not when you feel worthy. Now, exactly as you are in the exact state of having just done the thing you promised you would not do. Turn. And the turning itself, the small, immediate, non-dramatic turning, is the opposite of what the Nafs wants. Because the Nafs wants the shame spiral. The Nafs wants the despair. The Nafs wants the period of self-punishment that eventually becomes the trigger for the next cycle. The turning interrupts all of that, not perfectly, not completely. But it inserts a gap in the cycle, and gaps are where freedom begins. Let us go somewhere most people do not want to go. Let us talk about what the thing is actually giving you, not in the moment of desire, not in the theory, in the real experience of doing it. What does it actually give you? Because there is something. There is always something real, even in the most destructive habits, even in the most clearly harmful behaviors. The tradition does not deny this. The Quran itself acknowledges that in the things that harm, there is benefit. And then it says, but the harm is greater. Not, there is no benefit. There is benefit. There is something real. What is it for you? For some people, it is the only moment of the day when they are fully present, completely in the body, not thinking about the past or the future, just here, just now. And that is real. The desire for presence is not a flaw. It is a deep human need. It is actually a need of the Ruh, to be fully present, fully alive, fully in the moment of now. The problem is not that you need presence. The problem is that you have found a harmful way to get it. For some people, it is the only moment of the day when they feel in control, when the external world, the demands, the expectations, the voices, the pressures, goes quiet. And they are the one making a choice, even if it is a bad choice, even if it is a choice that hurts them, it is theirs. That desire, the desire to be the author of your own experience, is not a flaw. It is a need. The problem is not that you need agency. The problem is where you are finding it. For some people, it is the only moment when they feel something, not numb, not performing, not managing, actually feeling, even if what they are feeling is not good. Even if what they are feeling is a kind of dark pleasure or an edge of danger or the particular electricity of crossing a line. The need to feel is not a flaw. It is the cry of a heart that has been managed and controlled and suppressed for so long that it will take anything that makes it alive. For some people, it is comfort, the one reliable thing in an unreliable world, the one constant in a life full of variables, not joyful, not exciting anymore, just familiar, just known and familiar for a heart that has experienced a lot of loss or chaos or unpredictability, feels like safety. Do you see? The habit is not the problem. The habit is the solution. A destructive one, a costly one, a slowly ruinous one, but a solution to real needs that were not being met in any other way. And this is the question that changes everything. Not, how do I stop this? But, what does this give me? And how do I find that real thing, that real need, the presence, the agency, the aliveness, the safety, somewhere that does not cost me myself? Because if you try to stop without answering that question, you are not solving the problem. You are just removing the solution without replacing it. And the need remains. And the need will find another way to meet itself. And the new way may be different, but the pattern will be the same. Because the pattern is not the behavior. The pattern is the unmet need underneath the behavior. This is the level at which change actually happens. This is why the tradition connects so strongly to ibadah, to the practices of connection with the divine, not as rules, but as genuine meeting of these needs. The presence found in Salah, in the standing before the divine, fully here, fully now, not performing, but actually present. That is the real version of what you have been searching for in the habit. The agency of dua, the direct, unmediated, unfiltered conversation with the one who made you. That is the real version of the control you have been searching for. The aliveness of dhikr, the repetition that pulls the qalb back to its source, that makes the ruh vibrate at its actual frequency. That is the real version of the feeling you have been chasing, not as replacements, not as substitutes, as the original, as the thing the copies were imitating. Your Nafs found copies. The ruh always knew where the original was, and here is something that will either land very quietly or very heavily, depending on where you are right now. The reason the habit is so hard to leave is not because it is so good. It is because the real thing, the presence, the aliveness, the connection, the safety, feels so far away. The habit is not winning because it is strong. The habit is winning because the alternative feels unavailable. And the alternative feels unavailable because something happened, maybe years ago, maybe recently, maybe so gradually you cannot point to a moment, that made the qalb feel like the real connection was not for someone like you. Like the ruh's longing is a beautiful idea for other people. Like the turning back is available for people who have not done what you have done, or become what you have become, or gone as far as you have gone. And that belief, that silent, unnamed, deeply held belief that you are somehow beyond the reach of the real thing, that is the final architecture of the Nafs. That is the most sophisticated thing it builds, not the habit, not the loop, not the shame spiral. Those are just mechanisms. The final product is the belief that you are too far, that the distance is now permanent, that you know the door exists, you have seen other people walk through it, but for you, specifically for you, it is not open. And this belief is so painful that it is almost never spoken. It sits at the bottom of everything. Beneath the rationalizations and the plans and the cycles of guilt and promises, at the bottom is just, I do not think this changes for me. And if you are honest, if you are truly honest right now, not with me, but with yourself, in the quiet of wherever you are, you may recognize that feeling. It has been there for a while, quiet, settled, accepted, like the background radiation of your inner life. And I want to say something to that place, not with motivation, not with a speech, but with a clarity that is simply true. The distance is not real, not in the way the Nafs has constructed it. The ruh cannot be separated from what it was made of by repetition. The qalb cannot be permanently fixed in the wrong direction by habit. These are not theological reassurances. These are structural facts about the human being. The ruh does not accumulate damage. It does not get further from its source based on what the Nafs has been doing. The distance is always, entirely, a matter of where the qalb is pointed, and the qalb can turn right now, in this moment, after everything, after all of it. Not because you deserve it, not because you have earned it, because that is what a qalb is, a turning thing, a heart. And hearts do not stop being able to turn until they stop beating. You are still here, which means you are still capable, not of perfection, not of never falling again, but of turning. of the small, immediate, non-dramatic turning that is the only movement that actually matters. Now let us talk about the people who have tried everything. You may be one of them. You have read about it, watched about it, spoken about it, maybe even spoken to a therapist about it. You have understood the mechanisms. You have mapped the triggers. You have built the systems. You have tried the cold showers and the accountability partners and the journaling and the dua after Fajr for 3 days before the habit won again. And you are tired, not lazy, tired. There is a specific kind of tiredness that comes from sincere effort, repeatedly meeting failure. It is heavier than regular tiredness. It has a quality of quiet defeat, of almost, but not quite, giving up. And in that tiredness, the Nafs offers something very intelligent. It offers acceptance, not the real acceptance, the clear-eyed, non-attached, genuine peace with the present moment. The Nafs offers the counterfeit version. Just accept that this is you. Stop fighting yourself. Be kind to yourself. You are who you are. And it sounds like wisdom. It sounds like self-compassion. It sounds like the healthy thing. But what it actually is, beneath the reasonable packaging, is the invitation to stop turning, to let the Qalb settle in its current position, to make the distance home. Real self-compassion in the Islamic understanding is not accepting the Nafs's version of you. Real self-compassion is refusing to believe the Nafs when it says you are done. Real self-compassion is turning again, even when you have turned and fallen 100 times, because the turning is the proof that the Qalb is still alive. The falling is not the evidence that you cannot change. The falling is the evidence that you are in a real battle. Real battles involve falling. The only people who never fall are people who are not fighting. And you are fighting. Even if the fight looks from the outside or from the inside like losing. Even if the losses are more frequent than the wins right now. The fact that you feel this, the fact that you are still here, still listening, still looking for something more true than what the Nafs is telling you, that is the fighting. That is the Qalb, even in its divided state, still reaching. Do not confuse the frequency of falling with the direction of travel. They are not the same thing. Let us talk about the specific moment of return, not in theory, in practice, in the very real, very unglamorous, very quiet practice of the moment after falling. You have just done the thing. Again, the feeling is familiar, that specific combination of brief relief and spreading emptiness, and the beginning of the quiet shame. You are in that moment, exactly there. What happens in the next 60 seconds will determine, more than anything else, whether this cycle shortens or lengthens. Most people in those 60 seconds either go into the shame spiral, begin the internal narration of failure, the catalog of how long they have been trying and how many times they have failed, the rising dread of the identity statement. This is just who I am. Or they go into numbness. They let the feelings pass through without naming them. They pick up their phone or open something or move on or go to sleep. They give the moment nothing. Both responses, the shame spiral and the numbness, serve the Nafs. The shame spiral is fuel for the next cycle. The numbness is what the Nafs uses to prevent the Qalb from noticing what happened, which prevents the turning, which keeps the architecture intact. What serves the Ruh, what actually interrupts the cycle, is presence in that moment. 60 seconds of presence, just sitting with it, not analyzing, not punishing, not dismissing, just being present with the fact that this happened, with the feeling in the body, with the specific texture of this particular version of the emptiness after. And then, just then, the smallest possible turning, not a speech, not a plan, not a promise for tomorrow, one sentence, inward, honest, real. Something like, I am here, I fell again, I am still here. That is it. That is the turning. And it is almost nothing. It feels like almost nothing. It will not feel like a breakthrough. It will not feel like a shift. It will feel small and slightly awkward, and you will probably doubt that it did anything. But in the architecture of the Nafs and the Qalb, it did something very specific. It inserted the Qalb between the fall and the narrative. It said, I am going to name this, not disappear from it or drown in it. And that insertion, that tiny, quiet, almost nothing insertion of consciousness, is the beginning of the structural change, not the end. The beginning. The beginning is always this small, always. Let us talk about what you cannot see from inside the habit. Because there is something that the habit systematically prevents, not randomly, by design, or not design, by structure, by the way the architecture works. There is something the Nafs, in its efficiency, has blocked from your view. And what it has blocked is the actual cost, not the surface cost. You can see that. The time lost, the relationships affected, the ways it has slowed or damaged or complicated your life, you can see those even if you minimize them. But there is a cost that is invisible while the habit is active and only becomes visible in moments of clarity. The cost is the person you were becoming. Before the habit became the center of the architecture, there was a version of you that was growing in a particular direction, a particular quality of the Qalb that was developing, a particular closeness to the Ruh that was emerging, not dramatically, just the slow, gradual becoming that happens when a human being is pointed in the right direction, and the habit, by occupying the center of the architecture, stopped that becoming. Not reversed it necessarily, stopped it, froze it, kept it in one place while the days kept moving. And the cost of that frozen becoming, the cost of the years that moved while you did not, is invisible from inside the habit, because inside the habit, the days all feel roughly the same. The habit creates a kind of temporal sameness, of flatness in time, where the years pass but nothing inside accumulates or builds. You are older, you are not more. And when a moment of clarity comes, when the habit lifts briefly and you see clearly, the thing that hurts most is not the specific acts. It is the recognition of the becoming that did not happen, the version of you that was possible, the depth that could have grown. That grief, the grief for the self that did not become, is perhaps the most real pain available to a human being. And the Nafs, knowing this, keeps the habit present specifically to prevent you from feeling that grief. That's because that grief, if you actually felt it fully, if you sat with it, present without running, would be the most powerful motive for change that exists. The Nafs cannot survive contact with your real grief for your real self. So it keeps you away from it, through the habit, through the numbness, through the busyness, through the shame spiral that produces just enough pain to feel like you are paying the price without producing the real grief that would actually move you. You have been paying a substitute cost. The Nafs designed it that way. And what I am suggesting, quietly, without drama, is that at some point, you may need to let yourself feel the real grief. Not to punish yourself, not to spiral, to actually feel what has been blocked, to sit with the recognition of the becoming that stopped, to let the Qalb feel the weight of it, cleanly, fully, without the Nafs managing it. Because when the Qalb feels the real weight, the actual cost, something very different happens than what happens when it processes the substitute guilt. The real grief moves the Qalb, not away from the ruh, but toward it, because the real grief contains the recognition of what was possible. And the recognition of what is possible is the recognition of the ruh's direction. And that recognition, felt fully, not managed, is the strongest motivation available to a human being. Not fear, not shame, not discipline. The grief for the self you were becoming, and the quiet, not yet spoken, still possible hope that the becoming is not finished. Let us talk about the world. Because this is not happening in a vacuum. And the tradition does not treat the human being as isolated from their environment. What has the world been doing to the Nafs, specifically in the environment most people are now living in? The environment has been designed, not conspiratorially, but structurally, as an emergent property of the systems that have been built to serve the Nafs almost exclusively. Every notification, every scroll, every algorithm that learns exactly which version of stimulation your specific Nafs responds to and delivers it at exactly the moment of lowest resistance. Every system of comparison that makes the Nafs feel inadequate, which generates the restlessness, which seeks relief, which the same system then provides. Every platform that makes the Nafs's voice louder and the ruh's presence quieter and the Qalb's discernment slower. The environment is almost perfectly engineered to strengthen what the tradition calls Nafs al-Ammara and weaken what it calls Nafs al-Mutma'inna. Not because someone planned that, because the systems that emerged were the ones that were most successful at capturing attention. And the Nafs is the easiest thing to capture. So what you are fighting is not only your own inner architecture. You are fighting an external architecture that was built to reinforce the internal one. And this is important because it affects how you think about yourself. You are not unusually weak. You are not worse than people who came before. You are navigating an environment that is, in a very real structural sense, unprecedented in its alignment with the lowest layer of the self. And you are doing it with the same hardware that humans have always had. A Qalb that takes the shape of what surrounds it. A Nafs that responds to stimulation. A ruh that requires stillness to be heard. In an environment of almost zero stillness, this does not mean you are helpless. It means you have to be intentional about something that previous generations did not need to be intentional about, because the environment did not force the question so aggressively. You have to choose stillness, deliberately, daily, against the pull of everything around you, not as a spiritual exercise separate from this problem, as the direct structural response to what is happening. Because stillness is the only condition in which the Qalb can hear the ruh. And the ruh is the only source that can actually meet the needs the habit has been trying to meet. And the habit cannot be structurally changed without the Qalb turning toward the ruh, and the Qalb cannot turn toward something it cannot hear. So the chain is stillness. Ruh becomes audible. Qalb turns, needs met at source. Nafs loses its argument. Not one dramatic moment. That chain repeated daily, in increasingly brief moments of stillness, even 5 minutes of actual stillness, not passive consumption, not relaxation, not entertainment, actual stillness. where nothing is coming in, where the only thing happening is the quiet awareness of your own inner state. That is not luxury. That is the minimum structural requirement for the Qalb to have any chance. And in that stillness, something specific tends to happen. The Nafs, deprived of its constant stream of input, becomes slightly more visible. Its voice, which is usually merged with the background noise of constant stimulation, becomes slightly more distinct. You start to notice it as a voice rather than just experiencing its effects. You start to see the suggestions before you act on them rather than waking up mid-act. And the Ruh, which has been present all along, quiet, unchanging, patient, becomes slightly more audible, not dramatic, not revelation, just a direction, a pull, a quality of knowing that you cannot quite produce with logic, but that you recognize when you feel it as more true than the Nafs's version. And in that gap between hearing the Nafs more clearly as a voice and feeling the Ruh more clearly as a direction, in that gap, the Qalb can actually choose. Not easily, not without resistance, but actually. And that choosing, that actual, conscious, felt choosing, even once, even in a small moment, is different in its effect on the architecture from any number of intentions made in the abstract. Because the architecture learns from experience, not from decisions. And one moment of actual choosing rewrites a small piece of the architecture. And small pieces, accumulated, become the structure. This is why the tradition emphasizes daily practice over dramatic transformation, not because dramatic transformation does not happen, but because dramatic transformation is almost always the visible expression of accumulated daily practice that reached a tipping point. The tipping point looks dramatic. The work that produced it was quiet and daily and mostly invisible. No one sees the daily turning. Everyone sees the changed person, and sometimes even the changed person does not know exactly when it happened, because it did not happen at once. It happened in thousands of small moments of the Qalb, turning slightly, and then slightly, and then slightly more, until the direction had changed so completely that the old architecture felt foreign. You are not waiting for the dramatic moment. You are building it, daily, in the small moments of presence in the window, in the quick turnings after the falls, in the 5 minutes of stillness where nothing comes in the honest naming of what the Nafs is doing, in the refusal to accept the Nafs's identity statement, in the small, real grief that moves the Qalb without drowning it. These are not steps in a program. These are movements of the inner architecture, slightly, but every day. Let us talk about something very specific now, something that may feel personal. The promise you make at night is different from the person you are in the morning. You have noticed this? The sincere clarity of the night, when the act is recent and the emptiness is fresh and the Qalb is temporarily sober, makes promises that the morning self cannot keep. Not because the night self was lying, but because the night self was operating from the feeling of the cost, and the morning self is operating from the feeling of the need. And the need always comes back, not because you are weak, because it was never met. The night promise was made by the part of you that was feeling the emptiness after. The morning breaking of that promise was made by the part of you that was feeling the specific discomfort that the habit was built to solve. Two real states, two different inner conditions, one self. And what most people do when they notice this split is choose one version to trust and dismiss the other. Either the night self is the real me, the clear one, the one I should listen to, and the morning self is the weak, failed, fallen version, or the night self is just emotional, just the guilt talking, not a real commitment, and the real me is just someone who does this. Neither of those is accurate. Both versions are real. Both are you. And the task is not to pick one and suppress the other. The task is to let the Qalb hold both, the knowledge of the cost and the reality of the need, at the same time, clearly, us without collapsing into either one, because only when the Qalb can hold both simultaneously can it make a choice that is not reactive to the cost, not reactive to the need, a real choice, made from the still place where both are known. And that still place, the place where the Qalb can hold the full picture, is the place the tradition calls tawadu, the state of being genuinely small before the truth, not self-deprecating, not performatively humble, actually small, actually honest, actually without the pretense that you have it figured out, or that you are beyond needing help, or that the ruh is not what you actually are. From that place, the choice that emerges is not forced or performed or motivated by fear or shame. It is just true. And a true choice made from the still place that carries a different weight in the architecture than any number of motivated decisions made from the reactive place. One true choice made from stillness is worth more than 1,000 promises made in the aftermath of the act. Not because of some spiritual arithmetic, because of how the architecture actually changes. The architecture changes when the Qalb chooses from its real center, and the real center only becomes accessible in the still, small, genuinely humble place. We are getting close to something now, not a conclusion, a clarity. I want to say something about the version of you that keeps winning, the version that does the thing, the version that breaks the promises, the version that finds its way to the act in spite of everything, in spite of the clarity, in spite of the sincerity, in spite of everything you know. That version is not your enemy. I know that sounds wrong. I know you have been at war with it. I know you have tried to defeat it, eliminate it, shame it into disappearing. But here is what is true about that version. It is trying to keep you alive. In the only way it knows. It learned early, maybe very early, what your system needs in order to survive the specific kind of distress that your life generates, and it built a solution, a harmful solution, a costly solution, a slowly ruinous solution. But it was trying to solve a real problem. It was trying to protect something real. And the reason it keeps winning is not because it is evil or broken or irredeemably wrong. It keeps winning because it has not been heard. Not in the shameful sense of, I should be allowed to do what I want, but in the real, therapeutic, all deeply Islamic sense of, the need underneath this has never been genuinely met. The wound underneath this has never been genuinely seen. The part of you that this habit serves has never been genuinely addressed. And what you have been doing with all the willpower and the plans and the promises is trying to silence a part of yourself that was asking for something real. And silencing is not healing. Silencing is suppression. And suppression in the architecture of the Nafs does not eliminate the signal, it amplifies it. Because the Nafs, when suppressed, gets louder. Because the need, when unmet, gets more urgent. Because the system that was built to meet the need, when blocked, finds other ways in. What actually works what the tradition and the deepest psychology agree on, though they use different languages, is not silencing the version that keeps winning. It is meeting it, not with what it is asking for, with what it actually needs. The Nafs says, "Give me the habit." It needs genuine relief from genuine distress. The Nafs says, "I need this comfort." It needs actual safety in the present moment. The Nafs says, "This is how I survive." It needs to discover that survival is possible without the cost. And the meeting of those real needs, not through the habit, but through genuine presence, genuine connection, genuine stillness, genuine contact with the Ruh, is what transforms the version that keeps winning from an enemy to something different. Not a friend, not something you celebrate, something integrated, a part of you that has been heard and met and no longer needs to be this loud. And when it no longer needs to be this loud, something changes, not in one moment, but something changes. Let us come to the end slowly, because this deserves a slow arrival. What I have been describing across all of this is not a method. It is not a program. It is not a set of steps. It is a way of understanding what is actually happening inside you. And the reason that understanding matters, the reason it is not just intellectual, is because the Qalb moves in response to real understanding, not the understanding of the mind alone, the understanding of the whole being, the understanding that is felt in the chest, that changes the way the body is carrying itself, that shifts something in the quality of the inner silence. That kind of understanding is not produced by information. It is produced by presence with what is true. And the truth is this: there is a version of you that is not the habit, not the loop, not the architecture the Nafs built, not the adapted, numbed, going through the motions version that calls this is just how I am. There is a version of you that is the Ruh's expression in this specific body, at this specific time, in this specific life. A version that has been waiting patiently without resentment while the Nafs ran its systems. That version has not accumulated damage. That version is not further away because of what has happened. That version is as available right now as it has ever been. Because the Ruh does not participate in time the way the Nafs does. The Nafs is built in time. It accumulates patterns over time. It gets stronger or weaker over time. But the Ruh, the breath that was placed in the clay, does not decay. It does not get worn down by the Nafs's activity. It does not become less present because of what the Qalb has been facing. It is there, right now, in the center of you, in the stillness beneath the noise, in the direction the Qalb has been turned away from for a while now. And the only question, the only real question, is whether the Qalb is going to turn, not tomorrow, not after the last time, not when the life is better or the circumstances are easier or the willpower is stronger. Now, in this moment, which is the only moment that ever exists, the Qalb turns in the present, not in the future promise or the past failure, in this exact moment. And here is the last thing, the thing you have been doing, the thing you know will destroy you, the thing you keep returning to. It is not the deepest truth about you. It is the loudest thing about you right now. Those are not the same. The loudest thing is not the deepest thing. And the deepest thing, the Ruh, the direction, the original breath, the part of you that has been waiting, that is what is actual. That is what is real. That is what remains when the Nafs is finally quiet. You have not ruined it. You have only been away from it. And the distance between away and returned is a single turning of the Qalb. Not a journey, not a project, a turn. You know what it feels like. You have felt it before, in the rare moments when everything went still and something in the center of your chest was simply present, simply clear, simply itself, not performing, not managing, not surviving, just here. That was not a coincidence. That was not an accident. That was the ruh, briefly audible. In a moment when the Nafs was quiet enough for the Qalb to hear it, and it is audible right now. In the stillness beneath this moment, in the quiet that exists right at the center of everything you have been running from. You did not come here by accident. Something in you sent you here. That something knows more than the Nafs does. It has always known. And it has been waiting with the patience of something that is not built in time for you to stop long enough to hear it. So stop, just for this moment. Be still and listen to the thing that was never as far as you believed. It has been right there, the whole time.